Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. I got a good video suggestion the other day from a viewer that said they're struggling with this guy, a vibrating jig, and they were hoping I could provide a few tips to help them catch more fish. And the reality is, I know where you're at. I feel your pain. You know, I was an early adapter of this, meaning I knew about at the time, what was the chatterbait very early on, before most of the general public knew about it. It was just some hot bait in the professional tournament circuit level. And I had a bunch of them. But every time I went out and used them, I didn't catch much of anything, to the point where I kept putting it away. I'd pull it out, throw it, put it away because it just was not productive for me. And I finally got to the point where I was like, I know there's so many people out there that are having success on this, that it's me, it's not the bait. I need to figure out how to use it. So I really forced myself to take the vibrating jigs that I had and dissect them and figure out where and when to use them. And now it's one of my favorite baits. I think it produces better than average size fish. And it's just one of those baits when other bites or other baits aren't getting bit, the vibrating jig does at times. It's one of those baits that can really force a fish into biting, and that's what I love about it. So I'm going to give you 3 tips that to me are the most essential to generating more bites with your vibrating jigs. These are things that I've learned, and I just think they're crucial to your success. But before I share these with you, I do want to remind you that I do a bunch of lake breakdown maps with fishthemoment.com. These are breakdowns of lakes throughout the country. They give you a bunch of different locations that are based on season, and they're just going to help you break those lakes down faster. So maybe you need help on your local lake. Maybe you're going on vacation somewhere for the first time and want a little bit of a head start. Check those out. And if you're looking to purchase tackle, please use my Tackle Warehouse affiliate link, which is also in the video description. The little bit that I make from that goes right back into making content to hopefully help all of us catch a few more fish. So please check that out. And this is one of those baits that I think a lot of viewers have concerns and questions with because they're not catching many fish. So vibrating jigs are just not simply cast and wind baits. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make. But if we're going to take a vibrating jig right out of the package, like this Berkley Slobber Knocker with this Berkley Power Bait Power Stinger on the back, there are some things that I want to do to it before I even make a cast that I think are going to be very important. First and foremost, I'll always take the bait and I'll look at the skirt. Now, every vibrating jig I've ever had needs some work done on the skirt. And what I mean by that is I like to trim it up and remove a lot of material. In this case, you can see the skirt probably falls a solid inch below the bend of the hook. I'm going to cut that down so it's a 1/2 inch. Now that 1/2 inch cutoff is not going to do a huge amount of stuff, but what it is going to do is it's going to shorten up the material, and it's going to allow it to have a little bit more freedom. But more importantly, what I'm going to do is take the underside of the skirt material. So there's a part that comes out over the hand-tied thread, and there's a part of the material that comes out under the hand-tied thread. I remove about 1/3 of the strands that are on the belly, on the underside of the skirt, all the way around the bait. There's a couple reasons I do that. First and foremost, you remove some of that material. It allows the other strands to undulate better. They move better in the water. You get better, more lifelike movement. The bigger, the bulkier the skirt, the less it does. So I like to remove a lot of the material from the underneath side, as well as shorten the skirt material up. Now, by also removing and shortening a lot of that material, you allow your trailer to have more movement and more freedom. So it looks more lifelike. More importantly though, by removing some of that skirt material, what I'm doing is removing some of the drag that that bait has in the water, which allows it to have more erratic movement. So the bigger, the bulkier bait, the more that bait just wants to vibrate right at you. I want my bait on the retrieve going all over the place. The more material I remove, the more erratic motion. You got to remember that. The second thing that I'm going to do before I make a cast is I want to make sure I choose the right trailer. Now, there's some anglers that would probably argue with me on this, but in my opinion, you want a straight tail trailer. The reason for that is twofold. One, and most importantly, if you have a trailer that's got big flappers, a lot of appendages, a boot tail, all of that creates more drag in the water column, which then goes back again to that erratic movement. If you have that drag from your trailer, say it's a big boot tail, that's like putting an anchor on, on your bait. It doesn't allow your bait to have crazy erratic movement. So the more flappers and appendages you have, the more your bait's not going to do anything. The harder it is to get your bait to have that erratic movement. The other thing that I like to look for though is I like to have a bait that's got a little bit bulkier body. Instead of just putting a straight tail like just a worm on there, I like to have something that is that minnow profile because it does make the bait look like a minnow. But having a little bulkier body actually allows the fish to have something to suck into their mouth. When they go up and try to bite a bait, they create a vacuum. If you've got that nice plastic chunk on the hook, it actually allows the fish to suck your bait in better. So that's a big key as well. Now, the third tip is probably the most important tip. And I mentioned it earlier in the video, but don't go out and just cast and wind this bait. Don't throw it out, straight retrieve it back. You want to impart as much action as you can in these baits, whether that's by ripping your rod tip, snapping your rod tip, stop and go with your reel handle, killing the bait and just letting it fall to the bottom, deflecting it off objects, whether that's a stump, a weed, a dock post. You want your bait always deflecting off of something, and if it's not, you're doing it with your rod tip. You're imparting action into the bait, because every time you stop and go or make a rod movement, your bait's gonna skip a beat, and that gives the bait a little bit of a weird erratic movement, and that erratic movement is what triggers the fish to have a reactionary strike on that bait. They think that object, they think the vibrating jig is trying to get away. If the bait is just running true right back at you, there's nothing that makes the fish go, that's trying to get away from me. This is my opportunity to eat it. But if you're snapping your rod tip, if you're burning the bait back with your reel handle and then stopping it, those are all things that are going to create weird erratic movement that helps trigger the fish into biting. It never ceases to amaze me how I'll generate bites after you do something, whether it's snap the rod tip or rip it out of grass. That's when your bites happen. If you're casting and straight retrieving, you get you still get some bites, but you don't get nearly the same number of bites. So if you're struggling with a vibrating jig, those are things that I think you need to do to really increase your overall success with them. And I truly believe that if you do those three things, if you trim up the skirt, like this is a brand new one out of the package, trim it up, choose the right trailer, and then impart a lot of action into your bait, you're going to generate a lot more strikes on vibrating jigs. So hopefully that was helpful. If it was, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, we'll have a new video coming out tomorrow.